Hey everyone, so in this video I'm just going to walk you through the day-to-day operations of what I do every day. Right now we're in between cycles on lambing group, so it's a little bit quieter, but I still have a list of chores that I have to do just like I do every other day, so we're going to go through all of that. So I walk in the barn and just check for new lambs first thing to start the day, and I see an afterbirth and there's a couple new lambs, so I'm going to set her in a jug first thing. So once I get all the newborns organized, run a cartload of feed out first thing in the morning. I fill the cart 3 times, feed twice in the afternoon and once first thing. So I feed first thing in the morning for a couple reasons. First one is spreads out the feeding time so I'm not surge feeding everything at once. Secondly, it gets everything up at the front of the bunk, makes space in the pen so I can just reserve all the lambs for health, make sure if there's sick ewes, they won't come up for feed, and then I know right away. And when they're all up at the bunk, that's a good time to bed. So I'm gonna go do that right now, just throw some small square flakes in here. And I'll spend this time going through all the lambs that are in the barn, and I'm just looking for general wellness. If they start looking hunched up or they just don't have a lot of life to them, first thing I'll do is track back whichever number's painted on them in the book to the matching ewe, and then I'll check the ewe for udder issues. Now is a good time to check when they're not suspecting it. You just feel, those feel healthy. I don't see any health issues with the lambs in here this morning, and we've been doing a pretty good job this year of, if there's an udder issue, we deal with it in the jug, whether that's pulling the lambs off of her or pulling just one off of her. Being preventive with udder issues saves you dead lambs. That's just plain and simple. Sometimes it sucks having to pull lambs off of you and put them in the orphan pen because milk replacer is expensive, but if it's one side of the udder that's bad, then I pull the lamb, then I only let her raise one lamb. If both sides have a problem, I just pull the lambs. I don't even bother with it, and that ewe gets shipped. Call price for a ewe covers a bag of milk replacer, and then that saves me of having to feed a ewe for 1 extra day. And I'll make sure I put fresh bedding in here once, maybe twice a day. The more ewes that are in a pen with lambs, the wetter it gets. And a key factor of preventing udder issues is a dry environment. Now that everything's fed and they got bedding out, it's a good time to turn the water on. And I just have this electric pump. I just plug it in and let the hose cycle. With the water running, now's the time when I go in and check my orphans. Today is the day that the oldest orphans are getting weaned off of milk replacer, so they're not going to like it very much, but time. I wait until the youngest is 30 days old, and this group is mostly within 5 days of being born. So I think the youngest is 29 days, but the rest are 35. You can keep them on longer. It's really expensive, and they've been transitioned to a solid feed for a while now. This ewe has got a bone to pick with this other ewe. Guys, no fighting. Anyway, like I was saying, these guys are getting transitioned here. All their milk buckets are empty, and thankfully they haven't chewed all the nipples off the bottom. That's something I fight constantly. But I'm gonna get a second feed trough out for them, so then they have a little bit more room, because once they figure out that solid food is now the only way, they go through it like crazy, which is good, because you want them to grow. I find I just sit them down and try and support them back so they're not pushing backwards, and then get their mouth just on the nipple. Usually they should click in and figure it out, but this guy just is determined not to. There we go. And it looks like I'm holding their neck pretty hard. I'm not, I'm just supporting them. I find if you kind of hold their neck and hold their mouth this way, and then I'll kind of pinch their mouth open. Do everything as gentle as you can, of course. You don't want to force anything. But you do have to keep their mouth on the nipple to get them going. Buddy, you're gonna figure this out. There's no choice. And you can't just forget about them and leave, because they'll just get tired and go lay down and die. That's the nature of it. All these buckets are done now. I'm gonna only run 2 in this pen for these young guys, and of course those guys won't have any. So I'm gonna take these back and get them all washed up, just kind of keep them clean as I can. This sheep still has wool on her. When we were shearing, we found a couple that were just not looking healthy, and I shear before they come in the barn, so when it's really cold, they're not looking healthy. You want to help them out. I know one of them for sure has some kind of an abscess in her lungs, waiting for her to lamb, and then she's probably going to get called if she makes it. I don't like leaving wool on in the barn because they produce so much extra humidity. So all these sheep were shorn at the very end of November. We're about at the tail end of February here, and they got more wool on them than I'd like, but just for simplicity's sake, I shear everything all at once. So as the spring goes on, the sheep have more wool on them and it gets more humid as it warms up. It's definitely a challenge, but I'd only have the one barn, and I can't lamb and shear in it at the same time, so it works for me. Shearing's kind of a pain. I have a good shearer, and it helps when you have like 300 head. It makes it worth it for him. We spread that over 2 days. So with things fed, watered, and bedded, and the orphans looked after, then I move on to taking care of lambs and jugs. I don't have anything to process today, but usually I would process everything, get them all painted, and move them into a group pen. Do all that first thing in the morning. Since I don't have to do that today, I'm looking after this set of triplets. They were born about midnight 2 nights ago. This guy has not done well ever since. And she doesn't have great milk, so my strategy is I'll pull one off, give it a shot of selenium and number it so I know how old it is, put it in the orphan pen. I'm gonna check her milk again. If it hasn't improved, I think I'm gonna bolt 2 off and leave the biggest one on so he has the best chance of survival. And then I will give whichever one's in the orphan pen just another shot of colostrum. The colostrum's not really effective, seeing that we're about 30 hours since they were born, but it gives them an easy boost to get going and start life in the orphan pen. So Spot's gonna be the newest orphan. Just setting him out of the pen so I can check her milk here. That udder's got a little bit. There's that side of her udder's got a little bit. I'm not really loving it. She's also not really loving me. The other side doesn't have much milk in it. I'm gonna leave those. That's a water bag. That wasn't there a minute ago. Means someone's gonna lamb. Yep, there she is. You can see that one there. See, she's wagging her tail and she's got the membrane just hanging out. So I'm just gonna catch her, make this look real simple. When I catch sheep, I grab them by the neck, and they seem to really like that. And then most of the control comes from your legs, kind of like riding a motorcycle. Combination of riding a motorcycle and a wild bull. Where my head is right now is kind of dangerous because she could snap back and smoke me in the face. That has happened before, but... All right, sheep, we're gonna go for that pen right in front of us, so if you just want to casually walk over there. Hang on, girl. Oh. Usually I try and open the pen before we go in, but... Well, that's nice. Anyway, back to where we were. Got a track Spot down here. Hello, Spot. So I look up in my book here of births, what number that ewe would be. So he's number 42. You're number 42, Spot. I give him a shot of selenium. That prevents white muscle disease. I just give him a half cc, then I paint him so I know who he is. And this is Spot's new home. And he's not really sure where he is, but the other ones will let him know that he's the tiniest one and therefore the weakest. As they're in here, I will help them on the nipple, but it doesn't really make a difference because they're not really hungry right now. He just came from mom. Yeah, he's not really interested in it. These lambs haven't figured out that they're off milk yet, but give them a couple hours and they'll be like, WTH, where did our milk go? And then by about day 3, they'll completely forget they ever were on milk and they'll only want the solid food. Found one more ewe here that's got some membrane hanging out. That means she's about to lamb here. This is her second time lambing, so I'm gonna keep a close eye on her. These guys were born 3 days ago, and one of them they were born out in the snow. She had a bit of a rough start, and she's a ewe lamb. So I left them in here for a full 3 days just to make sure that everything went smooth, and I'm gonna process her right now and then send them into the group pen. Put the rubber ring on their tail. It's kind of a pain-free way of shortening their tail. It's pretty industry standard, and that keeps them clean and a little bit healthier. At least here in Canada. In the hotter climates, they keep the tail on so that keeps the flies away better, but we don't have that issue here. Then I'd use a paint marker and draw a number on each one. This one's 39. And I paint them rather than tag them because it is easier to see them with just the number. The paint wears off probably a month after they're born. I'm saving up to be able to buy an RFID reader, and then I'm going to tag every lamb with an RFID tag. That's really expensive. I used to do it that way, then it got too expensive, but just for good record keeping, I'm going to go back to it. And then of course every lamb gets selenium. I find it also helps with weak lambs. This one's a female, and you'd probably like to be set back down. I'll repeat that on both lambs, and then I'll paint the mother with the matching number. It's the middle of the day now. I just take a breeze through the lambs outside. Try and do it first thing in the morning when they're all snuggled up and nothing's too excited. That's a good indication to tell if anything's sick. This is Goat with her lamb, one of her lambs. She raises really good lambs. She's one of my best sheep. She's annoying as crap though. Isn't that right, Goat? This is such a great scene when everything's calm. They're snuggled in the sun. They got fresh straw. I do have one really sick ewe, and by the looks of things, she's not here anymore. Which is unfortunate, but it is something that happens. We're having like the mildest winter ever, which is very helpful for lamb health. When the wind is blowing and it's -20, it's really scary having baby lambs out here. My yard isn't quite as windproof as I'd like it to be. But these guys with green paint from the second group, they're kind of mixed together. And we put them in 3 or 4 days ago. But the fact that I'm seeing them looking healthy means they found their mothers and life's going well for them. Got the flock master out here. She keeps an eye on things too. I try not to walk in the sheds and walk through things until I've started feeding. Once the tractor goes by, they just start freaking out and getting the lambs all riled up. When everything's nicely tucked in the sheds, I just try and keep them that way as long as I can. And I'll walk through the creep gate here, the creep pen here, and just make sure that they're looking good. So this gap here is adjustable, and the tighter it is, and if you put it to a certain size, then the lambs can reach in there, but the ewes can't. It actually works really good, but you do have to keep an eye on it. It doesn't work great to have big lambs and small lambs, because you open it up enough for the big lambs, then the smallest ewes can fit in there. That's just a perfect picture right there. Good mother, snuggled up with both her lambs. It's wild to me how, as crazy as sheep can be, they still manage to figure out, okay, lambs, I need you to come snuggle with me now. That's something that's pretty amazing. Certainly is what you want to see. And ewes like that, if I could have an entire flock of good ewes like that, man, you can make some money in sheep. And if you have bad sheep, you can lose it all. So with everything in the barn looking good, I've got a couple ewes that are going to give birth here. But everything's bedded, fed, and watered for this morning anyway. And they're all under control. Orphans are looking good. I'm going to go in and have some lunch, and then we'll come out and continue. So I'm going to go clean these buckets all up, scrub them all down, disinfect them. So then if I have a bunch more orphans or whatever, and they're ready to go. So I finished lunch, and I'm just going to go walk through the barn, do a quick check on the newborn lambs, and if there's any new lambs, any issues. Once everything looks good inside, then I'll start feeding. Here's that one that I thought was gonna lamb earlier. Those look like two. Then there's one I put on this side. She looked a little smaller, so yeah, she only had one. That's not ideal. Hey buddy, you got bowled over there. Hey. Life's tough when you're tiny. So I don't feed colostrum until they've dried off a bit. You don't want to, if things are looking good at the beginning, like these guys, they're up and sucking and she's standing for them. I just want to leave them be. I don't want to interfere with that. But these guys were born, I found these guys here this morning. So they got to be at least 12 hours old. And I'm going to give them a shot right now. These orphan lambs have figured out there's no more milk. And they're just not real thrilled with that. So they're going to complain for a few days. And then they'll figure out where the food comes from. Here in the orphan pen. Spot seems to be accepted as one of the fellas, even though Spot's a girl, but I'm just gonna make sure she gets a little bit of help here. These older orphans are wondering what happened to their food supply. Well, everything in the barn's taken care of, so now I move on to feeding. The building I parked this tractor in is not heated, so I just plug it in every day and run it on a timer. This is canola meal. So I put about 150 pounds of canola meal in the bucket. Then I scoop up a bunch of silage. Whatever ends up in the mixer, subtract 150 pounds of canola meal, and then I can add the rest of my ingredients. So I got canola meal, barley silage, barley baleage, and alfalfa silage in there. I'm gonna pull it over to the bin and put in some barley, and then we should be good. The way these hydraulics work is when you release the hose, it drains out and just makes a horrific mess of everything. I was grinding grain yesterday, so it kind of made it dusty and it's just disgusting. Ready? Ready? While the tractor's mixing, I go for a load of dog food. So I back the tractor over here, and I have a little bit of a ramp for one side of the mixer that raises the conveyor up enough so it clears the side of the feed cart. This mixer just has two SCVs. So one set of hydraulics lowers the conveyor all the way and then engages the chain. So I set a lockout valve in that circuit so it bypasses and just goes directly to the motor that runs the chain. That way I can set whatever height I want it to be, which works great for filling the feed cart. So like I explained earlier, so I empty 2 feed carts worth in the feeder right now, then I leave a cart full and I'll feed that out in the morning. This is my 3rd group for lambing, and I keep the dogs down here. The boys are locked in here all the time. They live with the sheep, and sometimes they like to escape. So I have to open the gate to feed, and the way to distract them is I put feed out for them just before I unload feed for the sheep. So I've unhooked it again here, and we're ready to feed for the next day. After I'm done with the tractor, go put it away, and then I'll go back, close all the gates up. Don't want a coyote getting in. Then I'll walk through the barn, and there's only about 5 in jugs right now. I'll put a pitchfork worth of feed in their pens, and then they're considered fed. Still really pleased with the mix quality that's coming out of there. It's a little bit of long stuff still, but I've kind of reached the peak point where it's cutting as best it can, and if I let it cut any further, it's just going to cost more money and not gain a whole lot. Probably can't see it from here, but a motorcycle just went by. Today's February 22nd. Could very easily be minus 40 out here, so I like motorcycles. I don't blame that guy. If I had more time, I'd be on mine. This is the part of the day where I'll walk through the sheds. Now that the lambs are up and going, I don't like to disturb them in the morning. That's another good look there. All the lambs are figuring out the creep feed, how that works. An unfortunate part of livestock farming is if you have livestock, you're gonna have dead stock, and usually the dead ones show up in here. So I just do a scan if there's a sick one or if there's a dead one or whatever. This guy's off by himself. That's a little bit concerning. Oh, I know him. He's from the first group. He's one of the last ones. His mother had milk problems, so he's just trying to survive by stealing off of other sheep if he can. That's what I'm talking about. That ewe's been sick for a while, and I tried treating her, but she's too far gone. I don't know what exactly happened to her, but she ceased to be breathing, so probably safe to say she's not coming back. Didn't realize I was being followed here, but this is Cheryl. She's one of a better sheep. She loves me very much, and she raises a good looking lambs. What do you think, Cheryl? This is an important part of the day. All the friendly sheep want to come say hi. If you're having a bad day, that usually makes things a little bit better. This is Oreo. Oreo was born the 2nd year I started sheep farming. And one day I went out to the pen as a lamb and something went wrong with her neck and she couldn't lift her neck. Obviously I thought she wasn't gonna make it. Thank you, Cheryl. And so I treated her and fed her with a bottle for like 10 days. And then all of a sudden she just snapped back and she turned out to be a really good sheep. She's one of LaFonda's daughters, hence the black. Cheryl is from another one of my good sheep. Lambs are all waking up letting me know that they would like something to eat. And they're starting to go through that feed a little better, so that's what I like to see. I do give them fresh water here, and I use these bucket holders to secure the bucket, or else they would empty the buckets all over the pen in about 5 seconds. I'm constantly walking through, checking every lamb, everywhere that I can, as fast as I can, just glance things, and you're looking for anything out of the ordinary. Ewes that are off in the corner, lambs that are shriveled up. Basically any animal that's acting abnormally or by itself has a problem. I gotta feed these guys here real quick. So now all the jugs are fed. Everything in here is fed, watered, and bedded. Once again, my feed alley here is not wide enough for them to reach all the feed, so I kick it back and forth 3 or 4 times a day just to try and make sure everyone has constant feed. So those older orphans in that pen need another bunk in there. I think they're gonna run out of feeder space. And I build most of my own equipment, so I built this little bunk and these legs fell off of it. These sheep know what it sounds like to have a metal bucket, and as soon as you shake a bucket, they all come running. And as I turned around, there's another ewe here with the water bag hanging out, so I think lambing's gonna pick up here. See, like I said, they follow me everywhere. Well, here we go again. What are the odds you want to go in there? Got it. Hang on, girl. Ow! It's going really well. This is why it is important to send your kids for mutton busting. You never know when these skills could come in handy. Like I've said before, every day I walk through, just give them a little bit of a sprinkle of this decox medicine. Try and prevent coccidiosis, which is going to become really important here as the weather warms up and it starts melting and things get wet. Coccidiosis becomes a problem, which is scours. And man, I have such a good group of lambs here. It'd be a shame if we started having health problems. Back to the orphan pens here, working on these guys. I've got 3 that don't look good, including Spot. Just pretty standard as soon as they come in here, in that transition from mom to the milk bucket. Doesn't really go smooth, but I'll spend multiple times a day making sure it looks good. Talked about looking for lambs that have that hunched up look. This number 16 here, he's kind of one of them. Just not looking super lively. So I'm looking at my book here for number 16. It's this one here. So we're gonna get her in the corner and just check her for milk. She's got milk. She's got this there's some kind of odd lump in the back of her udder right in the rear, right at the rear of it. That's not a good sign at all. She's also a ewe lamb, so it's not uncommon for her to have poor mothering abilities with her lambs. Usually when ewe lambs are giving birth, you just kind of close your eyes for the first year if they can get through it. Some of them just have such terrible mothering abilities, and then the second year it clicks right in. But I'm gonna watch that guy and I'll make a note of that. So when we go to turn these ones out, number 16 is staying in here. He will not survive out in the big pen. Anything to add? The one I put in a few minutes ago, your water bag broke. There's some feet showing there. And those are front feet, so everything is in order. You can just see the outline of his nose. So I'm just gonna leave her be. If everything goes naturally and smooth, she should have that guy in a couple minutes. That's exactly what we want to see right there. Keep on rolling with that tonight. Well, it's about supper time now. Those newborns are looking good. I talked about those wooden sheds. I want some of the sides refinished before I sell them. So I'm just hauling the plywood out here tonight in the sunset. It's pretty beautiful out tonight. So it's about supper time right now. I'm gonna run in and grab a quick bite and then I'll come back out. I've got those newborn lambs to look after and a couple others that were born today. And then that other set that was born earlier, I gotta get them colostrum. Just walking to the barn for the last check of the night. It's about midnight. I don't usually stay up this late, but I've been editing what's gonna be my 4th video. Let me know if I'm getting better at this. I appreciate the feedback and the comments. If there's things you'd like to see more of, or there's things that I'm showing too much of, anything at all is very helpful. And I appreciate, if there's anyone still watching this, I really appreciate the support. Oh, crap. It's not good. Hey buddy, hey. Holy smokes, that was close. He had the membrane on his nose. If I'd have been here a couple seconds later, he could have suffocated. It's not looking super lively here, so I'm just rubbing him good and hard to keep his respiratory system going. Hey, buddy, I need you to live. All right, he's moving on his own. That's good. Not an indication to stop rubbing him though. Oh, this is that ewe that I was concerned about earlier. I should have been out here sooner. Hey buddy, let's show you tomorrow. Should have been out here sooner. Got too caught up in editing, but that could have been really bad. I did come out here after supper about 4 hours ago, around 8 o'clock, and I noticed her and I didn't see any issues with anyone. But man, that could have been bad. I don't like days like that. It's cooling off a bit tonight, so I'm going to turn these fans down. It's getting a little too drafty in here. The orphans are still letting me know they would like some milk, but a couple days from now they should have calmed right down. These other orphans, they're looking good. Even Spot's looking better, so. He's an absolute gronk of a lamb. So when I saw her way earlier today, she was in the corner and I was like, yeah, she's probably gonna lamb. I checked her at supper time, I was like, yeah, she's probably gonna lamb. Then I got too caught up in editing my video and she lambed. But when I got into the barn, like you just saw, he was in the membrane. And when they're in that membrane, if they don't move or their mother doesn't lick them off, there's a chance they can suffocate. You lose calves that way, you lose lambs that way. Super lucky I caught him just in time. He is massive. I'd be surprised if she has any more in her. I'd rather not have gigantic singles. I like healthy sized twins, but she's licking them off. She's gonna get him going. His head's a little bit swollen, which is an indication he was stuck for a little bit, but I've seen a lot worse. I'll call that a success. All right, Spot, we'll help you out one more time before I go in for bed. Good night, girls. Well, I appreciate you guys coming along with me today. That's just a typical day of what I do. The busyness varies from day to day. Sometimes I have a lot of newborn lambs, sometimes not as many. When there's not as many, I try and do the other odd jobs. And when there's a lot of lambs coming, I try to make sure I only focus on the lambs for their health. But it's 1:45. I'm gonna upload number 4 before I go to bed. But hey, I really appreciate you guys watching these. Y'all have a good night, and we'll see you again.